This video will provide a bare-bones introduction to text editors, including Vim and Emacs. First, there exists three different editors: Vim, Emacs, and Other. Vim and Emacs are both very powerful. And for that reason, it's probably a good idea to invest the time that's necessary to learn how to use Vim and Emacs, because you're going to be using them a lot. In terms of learning curves, Vim has a high learning curve, Emacs has a medium learning curve, and other editors generally have a pretty low learning curve. Vim is installed on pretty much every computer that runs Linux. It's completely universal, which means that it is possible that you will run into a computer that doesn't have Emacs or an other editor installed, but you probably will not run into one that does not have Vim installed. That's not to say that it'll be hard to install Emacs or another editor on your own personal workstation, but if you're administering somebody else's server and for some reason you don't have root access so you can't install it yourself, then you might at some point in time be forced to use Vim. Vim is very integrated into the Unix philosophy, meaning it does one thing and one thing well, and that thing is text editing, whereas Emacs is more feature-rich. That's not to say that Emacs is anti-Unix or that Vim doesn't have any features. It's just that with Vim, if you want to install new features onto it, you'll have to add in a plugin, whereas with Emacs, there's a good chance that it's already installed out of the box. There's a little bit of a difference in size between Vim and Emacs. Vim is really small, whereas Emacs is a little bit bigger. Not that that really matters. And probably the biggest difference between Vim and Emacs, aside from the learning curve, is that Vim is very easy on the fingers, whereas Emacs causes the Emacs pinky. Vim is easy on the fingers because it's a modal editor, which means that you can do a lot of things with only a few keystrokes, whereas the Emacs pinky refers to the phenomenon where people who use Emacs might get a sore pinky because you have to press the Control and Alt keys a bunch of times in order to do anything. I'm going to show you how to use an other editor, just in case you don't want to invest any time in learning how to use Vim or Emacs, but really you should learn either Vim or Emacs. So both Vim and Emacs will be really powerful, and they'll do what you want, and they'll be worth the time commitment that you put in to learn how to use them. Now let's see how some of these editors work. You can see in this directory we have textexample.c. And if we want to print it out, textexample.c is just a very simple hello world program. First, another editor. Nano is another editor. If you just type Nano and then hit enter, it will open Nano. Once you're inside of Nano, you can just type stuff, and then it will go on the screen, just like you would expect. If you want to move around, you must use the arrow keys. You cannot just click somewhere. You can see that clicking will highlight stuff, but it will not move the cursor. The cursor is down here. When I click, it does nothing. That's because I am still inside of the terminal, and when you click on a terminal, it doesn't do anything. The terminal can't respond to the mouse except for maybe highlighting stuff. You'll see down here, there's instructions for anything that you would want to do. All of these caret keys mean the control key, which means that if I type "G", it will get help. So Control G, and it pops this up. You'll see that there's a reference to meta. So caret was control. Meta is actually the alt key if you have an alt key, or if you don't have an alt key or for some reason don't want to use it, you can also hit the escape key and then let it go. If we want to get out of the help, we can just type Control X for exit. If we want to close the current document, then we can just type Control-X for exit. And you see it asks if I want to save the modified buffer. The buffer is basically the current document that you're using. So if you edit something and you want to save it, then you want to save the modified buffer. So here this was just a little dummy, so I'll just say no. If I want to actually edit a particular file, then you just have to type nano followed by that file. So here I said nano textexample.c, and now you can see it opened textexample.c, and you can move around, you can type stuff into it, or do anything that you want. That's pretty much all there is to know about Nano. It does have more powerful features, but it's still less advanced than Vim or Emacs, so it's probably a better idea to invest your time in learning one of those than in learning this one. There are plenty of other editors. For instance, there's gedit, there's Notepad or Notepad++, there's TextEdit. You can pretty much use anything that will edit text. You don't want to use something like Microsoft Word or OpenOffice because those will have formatting, which means that they'll insert hidden characters, and that's stuff that you don't want to do when you're editing something like code or a configuration file where the actual formatting is very specific. Vim is pretty much the same. You just type Vim and then it will run it. A lot of times you might see me running VI instead of Vim. I'm actually running the same program, it's just VI will act as an alias to Vim. VI is an older version of Vim. Vim stands for VI Improved. But since nowadays nobody really uses VI, whenever I say VI, I mean Vim. Now here, if I start typing something, for instance if I say type stuff, you'll hear that my computer was just yelling at me, and when I typed stuff, all it just gave me was tough. That's because Vim is a modal editor. There are a few different modes. There's command mode, which is what I want to do if I want to save a file, quit, or open something. So for instance, if I want to quit, I would have to say :Q, and then you'll see down here at the bottom of the screen, there will pop up the Q. When I type : it enters into command mode, and then anything that I type is going to go down here. So if I type :Q, then it'll quit, and then it'll prompt me that there was no write since the last change. In other words, I added tough here, and I didn't save it. So if I want to quit, I would either have to save it with :W, or I would say :Q exclamation point. Exclamation forces it to do something, so it will bypass the prompt and it'll just quit. If I want to open a particular text file with Vim, then you can just say Vim followed by that file, and it will open it, just the same as with Nano. If you want to type something, then you have to go into insert mode. To go into insert mode, you can press I. To get out of insert mode, you press escape. You'll notice that down here, something changed when I went into insert mode. Here, it says insert. When I press escape, that goes away. If I press I, then anytime I type something, it'll actually type it. And when I press backspace, it'll delete it. When I am in normal mode, in other words, when there's no insert down here, it will not do that. It will not type something. It's used for navigation. What that means is that you can do a lot of things in Vim with only one key, because that key is not used for typing. So if I want to move one word forward, I can just press W or Shift W. Or if I want to go back, it's just B. The most basic navigation in normal mode is H, J, K, and L. H and L move left and right. J and K move down and up. If you want to save, you go :W for write. If you want to save and quit, then you do WQ. If you just want to quit, you just do Q. Because Vim is pretty complicated, since it's a modal editor, you won't want to run it without knowing a little bit more about the different modes. You can learn some about the modes by running Vim Tutor. Vim Tutor is installed anywhere that Vim is installed. So if I just type Vim Tutor here, then it will run the Vim Tutor and it'll tell me what I need to do. So there's stuff to read here, and then you can see to move the cursor, press HJKL keys as indicated. So you'll press J to go down, and you'll go through this. When you want to quit out of the tutorial, you just press :Q, just like you would normally in Vim. Emacs is much the same. If I want to run it on a particular text file, you just say Emacs, and followed by that file. It'll go into the file. You can go around using the arrow keys. With Emacs, like Nano, it does not really have separate modes, so you can just start typing stuff. And that also means that if you want to do anything complicated, you'll have to use Control and Alt a lot. To save, you say Control-X, Control-C, and it'll ask if you want to save the file, and you can just say yes. And if you want to run the Emacs tutorial, then you can see here, to run the Emacs tutorial, do Control-H followed by T. So if I press Control-H and then I let go of Control and type T, it will run the tutorial, much the same as Vim. It has you walk through some stuff. And quitting out is going to be exactly the same, just Control-X, Control-C. The first thing you'll want to do when you start with Vim or Emacs is go through those tutorials. After that, you should download a cheat sheet that has a list of a bunch of commands. And for me, it wouldn't help to look at a video and to see somebody talking about all the cool things that they can do in Vim, because really you just need to go through and learn one tip at a time and integrate it into your workflow. It isn't the type of thing where you can just memorize a bunch of things and then you'll magically be better at text editors. You need to slowly, step by step, integrate stuff into the way that you use your text editor on a day-to-day basis. So a good thing to do is to find a list of a bunch of commands for Vim or Emacs and just try to learn one or two every day or every week. And then you'll gradually get better and better as time goes on, and you'll be faster and faster with your text editor.